Okay, you just gotta remember at the end of the Shir.
Yeah.
You have YouTube? You look it up?
Yeah.
See if it's right. 10:15 or 10:30?
Yeah, 10:30.
Really?
Yeah, it is 10:30.
Oh, so let's check.
Oh man.
I thought it was 10:15 also. Oh, wow.
It's 10:30.
He's just there. Yeah. So
You know
so
the
you always
folder is dope? You have a folder or something?
It's just there.
Jay Klecker saved mine from last week.
Jay Klecker?
Collected them?
Last week, yeah. I mean, it says it. Is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
You and somebody else.
Yeah,
We're let me check his cubby. He collected them?
Yeah, and the whole.
And shop big on
It's by next.
by next Jersey.
I think that's the local. That's gonna be my little. Right. That'll be. And it's gonna be very complicated. I don't know if you're ready. They bought. They almost campus that they have. And then they bought this other campus, which is like half a mile away. So really these are so they're gonna take that goal back to you. Move all this stuff.
You had the folder. I gave it to you though.
It's not being compared to what's going on. They don't want to make it.
I didn't know he was away until today.
Yes. But they, I mean, that's talking about like, save it on the money, like, they only need one.
So, you have Adobe?
Yeah. But I paid $20 a month.
For what? For the whole thing?
For the gray house.
Right, so I don't know if you'll have, this is Adobe project. So it looks like you need to sign into your Adobe. If it doesn't work for you, just send me the file and I'll do it for you. If it doesn't work, just let me know, I'll do it.
No, you don't have to get the gold. No, and then the other part was like you take that home and everything like that, so like I think they're gonna take that would be correct.
I heard your leg is fine. This is just a whole
And they'll figure it out.
pity tour.
He has some ideas. Because there's nothing else.
That's what it is.
Yeah. So he's, you know, we don't really understand what that era.
We got it, don't worry.
So I have some ideas.
It was over there. It wasn't in something, so we plugged in that over there.
That's why I want to do that.
Oh, you found the thing?
I posted that I got it.
That's
I saw you wrote it. I didn't see it, so I got
You
nervous.
found the battery?
Yeah.
Thank you,
Turn on the mic.
To begin by thanking Nachmani, the family, the Shiur, and Zechon Ishmael's father, Zechon Bracha, Yisrael Simcha Nachas and Bracha. So we're up to, the pages are not numbered, but 4. So how does it work? We were talking last week about the chiluk between the child who's familiar only with the senses, with his physical senses, and that's how he experiences the world. That's how he lives, with his physical senses. And then something very, very strange begins to happen. Things change from the present to something that's there on his body, that's changing in his body, but it's not about how he's just experiencing the present, but to force him to think about the future. Because these changes that are taking place have to do with how Kadosh Baruch Hu created us in order to be able to move forward and to have family and to give chiyas to other people. But the child, as a child, is just himself and had to satisfy his own physical needs. And even if he was maturing a little bit, he's moving along intellectually and emotionally, but he's not ready for this radical change in his body. That is telling him that the tachlis is not indulging in this moment, but to think about what's going to be in the future and to wait. And waiting is a hard thing. Because Davka wanted the young man to go through that base medrash from the time of his beginning to develop through the bar mitzvah until he's under the chuppah, to prepare him for a life of giving, of doing. A lot of this is connected to what we're learning about in the Erev Shabbos Chabura Ayaka, the 8 o'clock Chabura from Rav Sasson Cook that we're learning. And today we're just going to continue to try to finish this booklet and then to work on some a little bit more on the pneumias of what this is. It's going to be a little bit awkward and squeamish, but again, it's Torah that we're learning, and this is only to have a sprach, to have words, to be able to use to create one's own conversation with the kids. And I'm hoping that it's helpful. I believe that it can be if we use it, each one in his own way. So like all males, you have a male, again, this is being written for the kids, not written for us. Like all males, you have a male reproductive organ, which is sometimes called the Eva Habris in Hebrew. That makes it less uncomfortable if you use the word bris instead of using English words. The Rambam explains why is it called Lashon HaKodesh. And you know that it's called Lashon HaKodesh because we don't have words in Hebrew that are just for things that are supposed to be covered and hidden. So we don't have a word like they have in English for that part of the body. It's called the bris. Bris doesn't have anything with biology. Bris means a bris, it means a covenant, it means a connection. And the same thing when you learn, anybody that's learned Gemara Nida. So when you have words like cheder or prosdor, so you think you're going on a tour in some building someplace, when you're actually describing the woman's biology. We don't have words that are impure. Lashon HaKodesh is very pure. And it's important to keep this conversation pure. So even though you might be comfortable using English words for the different parts of a male body or of a female's body, still it's better to use words if you can. Maybe just to say once in English, but the child should know, the boy knows what these words mean. But instead of speaking in English about that part of the body, it's better to say the bris. It's better to say the bris. And it's also better to say zera, to use the words in Lashon HaKodesh that it frames this as Torah, not as something that's from the street. It's part of your life as a Ben Torah, as a Yirei Shamayim, and this is not just biology or something in a magazine. This is Torah. So it's called the Eva HaBris in Hebrew, the limb of the bris. This limb has two parts that you should become acquainted with: the limb itself, which will be used for going to the bathroom, and the part underneath it, the testicles, which are called in Lashon HaKodesh the beitzim also. The two testicles are round and shaped like small balls and are located within a portion of the skin of the body called the scrotum sac. The testicles are very sensitive, so care is needed to ensure that they don't get injured, which can hurt tremendously. At this stage, when the ability to have children begins to develop in the body, hair begins to grow around the reproductive organ. Although you might initially find this alarming, don't worry. It means your body is working properly and is preparing itself for the time that it can fulfill this important function. Even if you have not yet reached this stage, that's okay too. Everyone has a different rate of development. And that's important. This has come up, a number of fathers have mentioned this to me, that those who have try to initiate conversations with the boys that since the guys talk to each other, so there might be a guy there's a guy that's holding in one place and the other guy's holding in a different place. So the kid starts to worry that maybe he's not normal. How come that guy has something going on? I don't have this going on. So it's important that they understand that everyone has a different rate of development. 5. The testicles, the Beitzim, are like a mini factory inside your body. Around the age of 13, this factory begins to produce many tiny little particles called sperm, called zera. Each zera can, with Hashem's help, cause the creation of a baby when it encounters the particle found in the female body called the egg. Also, the Beitzah. It's called the egg inside the woman. It's amazing that such a small particle can be transformed over time into a developed and complex person, and that you too were created this way. These sperm, these zera, are released from the body when the reproductive organ becomes hard and erect, from the same place that you go to, the bathroom. They emerge within a whitish liquid substance called semen, which creates the environment in which sperm can survive outside of the body. When we are awake, this zera does not simply leave the body by itself, but it can occasionally be discharged while we are sleeping, which for a kid is one of the most traumatic things in his life growing up when that happens. So this phenomenon is called a seminal discharge, or mikra laila. It's called in the Swarm, it's called a mikra keri, a mikra laila. If you think about how that lashon, how these words are so beautiful, why it's called a mikra. A mikra means it's something that happened. You shouldn't think of it. You shouldn't identify this as who you are. And the kilu, there's something wrong with you. There's something bad with you. It's a mikra laila. Zakara, mikra laila. A nocturnal emission in scientific language, and keri in the language of Chazal. It's called keri. Now, in the Tarchacha, the word keri has a negative connotation. It means when a person doesn't think about what he's doing. They're not thinking. It's a keri, also mikra. You're not concentrating. You're not thinking. So when the Torah says halachtam imi keri, Hashem is complaining about us, and He says, "You go with me in a way of keri." So it means that you're going in a way that's casual, unthinking, not planned, not worked out. So that's the negative connotation that we find in Torah for the word keri. And like there are many words in Lashon HaKodesh that can mean something positive and can mean the opposite, something which is negative. So this is related to the word mikra, something accidental and not intentional. Mikra. If this happens, you will feel that your clothes or sheets have gotten a little wet. Although this doesn't happen to everyone, if it does, it is totally natural, and there is no need to be frightened or upset. On the contrary, this is a sign that your body systems are working the way that they should. It's healthy. Bris Milah. Now, it's important to also to this entire conversation, and that's why one of the reasons why I liked very much how this was done. It's important to frame it in the mitzvah of Bris Milah. Also, to put into the Mizgeres of Bris Milah, which we're going to be working on Mitzvah Shem and Pnimius in the coming months in Mitzvah Shem, to understand the Pnimius of the mitzvah of Bris Milah, and for the boy to see this as part of that world of Kedushas HaBris. Since the Eivah HaBris has such an important role to play in our lives, the Torah has given us an important mitzvah to perform relating to it. And that, of course, is the mitzvah of Bris Milah. During a bris, we remove the part of the skin known as the orla, or foreskin, which covers the upper part of the aver, of the lip. By doing this mitzvah, we help the baby to enter into the bris, which actually means covenant or agreement that Hashem made with Avraham Avinu, that we are committed to being Jewish and establishing a special relationship with Hashem. Through this ceremony of the Bris Milah, the baby receives this physical part that identifies him as part of the Jewish people. Have you ever thought about the significance of this mitzvah? After all, it's a little strange to take an 8-day-old baby. Davke, as the Sfarim explained, we'll talk much more about. Davke, the baby has, everything by the baby is a mikra, because the baby has no seichel. So the baby can't think about anything. And the bris is Davke given to the baby, Davke, when the baby is not able to reason and has no free choice. That's the metzias of the child. It's a little strange to take an 8-day-old baby and do something to him that appears painful and even a little cruel. What is especially surprising is that the vast majority of Jews, even those who don't consider themselves to be religious, have continued to fulfill this mitzvah very carefully. So what's the secret? What's the secret of the bris milah? It is a great privilege to be a Jew and act like one, even though sometimes it takes a little bit of courage to do so. This trait of mental courage, known as gevura, accompanies a Jew throughout all parts of life. Getting up each morning to daven, checking whether one is eating only kosher food, waiting in between eating meat and dairy, watching what one says, not stealing or lying, and keeping Shabbos all require us to overcome urges or desires which we sometimes may want to give in. So the bris is, of course, that part of us that requires, as we mature, and that's what he's getting to, that requires the greatest gevura to be in control of. To be a Jew, and the bris that we have with Hashem, the covenant that we have with Hashem, means living a life of cheshbon, of thinking, of control, of discipline. Of Shulchan Aruch. That's what it means to live a life of a bris with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That part of the baby, that part of us is called the bris, the Ever HaBris, and that is the part of a person that requires the most gevura in order to be in control, in order to be misgaber. So one of the primary goals of the mitzvahs is to teach us how to overcome our personal desires in order to live according to the will of Hashem. The word mitzvahs in Hebrew is related to the word tzeves. A tzevet means a staff or a team of people, and hints to the idea of connection or unity. And the word tzavta, tzadik vav vav taf aleph, means connection. The modern Hebrew word that they use for a staff happened much later, to call it a tzevet, a staff. But it means people who are bound to one another. It's the same. The word mitzvah always means connected to be connected. A unity, which should be true of a staff of workers also. Each mitzvah links us to the will of Hashem. Every mitzvah is for the purpose of creating this tzavta, this binding to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. When the goal of trying to fulfill Hashem's will is at the center of our lives, then our entire day looks different, and all of life looks different. It takes on much deeper significance, and we can achieve a sense of inner calm and happiness when a person has a tachlis in life, when a person lives a life of bris. When you're bound to that tachlis and you work every minute of your life towards that goal, towards that objective, then you're a person that's able to live a life of simcha. Because the ikar atzvus of the world, we're now in Adar, and Adar is mishnichnas Adam Abim Simcha, because it's a time of mechias amalek, and amalek means uncertainty. It means a lack of clarity. And the misery of the world comes from not having a tachlis in life, not having a clear objective or a clear goal. That's where the sadness of the world comes from. Not having a tachlis, not knowing what my purpose is. Why am I living? Why am I alive? What am I supposed to be doing with my life? So even a person who creates for himself some sort of a goal, even if it's tam, whatever it is, even if it's not in kedusha, there's his iris of simcha. Anytime that a person defines something clear in his life as an objective or a goal that he wants to accomplish, so that will give him a certain feeling of simcha. But the tachlis of life, of course, is avodas Hashem, to be never Hashem. And therefore, when a person's in that bris, then it takes on a much deeper significance, every mitzvah, everything that we're doing, and we can achieve a sense of inner calm and happiness. This is why the first mitzvah in the Torah that Avraham Avinu was commanded is the mitzvah of bris milah. So it's interesting, there are different many mitzvahs, of course, how the Rambam and the Bahag and Reb Saadia go, how they count the 613 mitzvahs. But we see from the very beginning of Torah that it's very clear that it begins with Pru Uruvu and then with Avraham Avinu with bris milah. That's how the version, the burim that Hashem Yisbarach has. We have the Sheva Mitzvahs B'nai Noach, but as far as mitzvahs Yisrael are concerned, so Pur Uruvu and bris milah is the very beginning. So the first mitzvah in the Torah that Avraham Avinu was commanded is the mitzvah of Bris Milah. In order to teach him and us that to be Jewish, you need courage, gvura, and inner mental strength. Though the actual cutting of the orla is painful, what one receives by doing so is well worth it. Even if we accept this explanation, we may still wonder why the mitzvah must be done in this way. Why must it involve removing a portion of our skin? And why did this sign have to be imprinted on our bodies in this way? The great Torah sages have offered many explanations for this over the generations, and here are some of them. A. Less is more. Through the mitzvah of Bris Milah, we rectify ourselves by removing an unnecessary portion of our body, the foreskin, the orla. This action teaches us that our connection to Hashem is strengthened by removing unhealthy character traits, such as selfishness, jealousy, and desire. And each one of these things can be used to have a conversation, to discuss. What does that mean? There's an orlas habasar, and there's an orlas halev. And the Torah uses the same word. Umaltim is orlas levavchem, to take off the covering of your heart. So there are things in life, and that's what it means to grow up. There are things in life that need to be peeled away, that need to be removed in our, not only physically with our desires, but emotionally and in terms of our selfishness and so on. Jealousy and desire, things that need to be removed, to be peeled away. B. Demonstrates the difference between Jews and non-Jews. Bris Milah separates us from the rest of the nations. Just like soldiers, and he's not bringing the names, but the Rishonim bring down these reasons. Just like soldiers in the army wear special uniforms that differentiate them from other ordinary citizens, so too, we the Jewish people have special uniforms. We have uniforms we wear like tzitzis, and we have a permanent sign on our bodies that reminds us constantly that we are part of the chosen nation that has received the unique task in this world. As we say in Birkas Hamazon, in Noidlecha, we thank you, Hashem, V'abrischa, shechasamta b'bsareinu, shechasamta b'bsareinu. So that's the Eved that the Rishon tells us, Sfarim and other Rishon tell us, that the Eved would have a stamp from the Adon, so too each and every one of us is stamped with a seal, with the Chasim of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and that's Al-Brischa shechasamta b'bsareinu.
Even though that uniform is totally hidden from others and even from ourselves?
Fakir, just the opposite. The ikr is that it's totally hidden from others, and it's something which is completely concealed within yourself. That's the ikr that I mentioned in the Chabur the other day. I don't remember which Chabur it was, but I mentioned one of the Chaburs because it came up in the conversation about the Big Day Kahuna, the parasha. We're talking a little bit, and I mentioned the other day that by one of the tzaddikim, I think maybe it was Rabbi Levine, but I'm not 100% sure. I don't remember. But by one of the tzaddikim, they were bringing into his apartment a new couch. It probably wasn't new, but it's probably after the Churban by Yishem. A couch, and it had been upholstered, and the back of the couch was not upholstered, and they were taking it in. The mover was bringing it in to put it against the wall, and the tzaddik saw this and he asked, "What's going on with it? How come what's with the back?" So the guy that was moving it said, "Oh, nobody sees that. It goes against the wall." So the tzaddik said, "That's the ikar part that's the main thing that needs to be upholstered. The main thing." So davka the part that no one sees. You're right, because you could say usually a siman, if this is a siman to make a distinction between us and the rest of the world, so it should be something that you would wear on your forehead. So it should be that would it be a mitzvah in the Torah, that the first mitzvah of the Torah would have been that it should say, there should be like a yud or a yid or something, a yehudi, it should be forged in with fire onto the forehead of the baby, that wherever he goes in life. And then we could have done it for girls too. They would have had the cosmetician take care of that. But wherever you go in life, so then it's clear that. So the point is, Davka, that it's where nobody else sees except for yourself, because that's something that you have to know. And when you know that, then you will make that havdalah between you and the nations. It's not that the goyim should know that I'm a Jew. By the way, they found out ways. They did that in history too, to see who a Jew is. With bizyonis. It wasn't that you should know the chiluk between yourself, and it wasn't a simon for the goyim. The goyim know the difference. It's that you should see that there's a chiluk between yourself, and because of that, is davka something which is the most discreet part of who you are. It's the most hidden part of who you are. It's the other side of the couch that nobody else sees. That's you, because you have to identify yourself as a ben bris, as somebody who's a ben bris. As far as how the world looks at you and what they see of you, if you are proud of who you are, they'll know that there's a difference between you and them. They'll know the ata b'chatanu. But if you don't have yourself a connection to the bris that you have with the Kadosh Baruch Hu, which is the most hidden and deepest part of who you are, so then there's not going to be any ata b'chatanu. So it's davka that I'm glad you asked it. It's davka the part that's most hidden and most discreet, and that's not part of the world. It's just something yourself. That part of yourself that nobody else sees, that's what the ikka b'chira, that's where your b'chira really plays itself out in the ways that nobody else can see. The same way that you have a person that in the eyes of the world is a very fine Jew, and whoever sees this person is gewaldig. But in a place where nobody sees him, when he's hidden from the eyes of the world, his b'chira is not on the level that it is when he's in shul or at work, or even the person that his family knows or his wife knows. It could be a whole other side to this person, which is on the other side of the couch. It's not a polster, and the ikka b'chira of a person is not part of yourself that nobody sees. Nobody sees. See, remember the goal. Our bris milah reminds us constantly that the ability. By the way, speaking of reminding, I know my watch is not working, so just tell me when we're getting to the neighborhood of 11:15. Remember what time is it now?
5.
Okay.
No one's going to tell you right now.
Moshe, can you tell me?
Yeah.
I knew that you meant that you want to be the one to. Okay, remember the goal. Our bris milah reminds us constantly that the ability to have children is connected to our responsibility as Jews in this world. It reminds us that the goal of having children for a Jew is to further the presence of Hashem in the world and remain committed to Him. I mean, the whole mitzvah of Puruvu, and then followed up with Avraham Avinu in the mitzvah of bris milah, is we saw this a little bit in one of the mamarim for Ramotel that we learned a couple of years ago, and we're going to talk about it more. We see from the very beginning of the Torah that the hafkar, the removal of a person from a mitzias of tohu vavo is through bris milah and through puruvu, and therefore it says in Pasuk that, and Chazal talk about this, that Hashem did not create the world for tohu. L'shavas yitzar, Kadosh Baruch Hu wants the world to be filled with His presence, and the way that the world is filled with His presence is by being more of our presence. Our presence means Kedushas Yisrael, and the more Jews in the world, and the more Yiddishkeit in the world, the less tohu in the world. So from the beginning of Torah, the antidote of tohu vavohu is pruvu and bris milah. That's the opposite of the matzav of tohu vavohu. To bring more of it, to bring more elokus into the world, to further the presence of Hashem in the world and remain committed to Him. This constant sign reminds us of this goal and its connection to the tremendous potential of having children. Shmir Sabris. That's why we see that it's interesting, because you would think that Dafka, this much, we'll talk much more about this, but you would think that Dafka by bris milah, that people who are not religious or don't believe in anything, that they would not want to have for their children bris milah. But history has proven that the Jews will go to take great risks, even though they knew that there was, in many ways, that especially in the early years, before Goyim were ever thinking of having a bris, because now many get circumcised for health reasons, but even people throughout the years who knew that would really be putting their child at risk in the future of being identified as a Jew. Nevertheless, the Ma'aseh Nefesh and Chazal tell us that we see that any mitzvah that Jews were Ma'aseh Nefesh to keep, those mitzvahs are still with us. And the mitzvah, even by people who are not from, but the mitzvah of Bris Milah is still so strongly kept. Again, I don't know what the statistics are these days with Jews who are not Orthodox, whether they're still having some sort of a bris in the hospital or something with a moral. I don't really know, but we see that throughout the years that this is something that Yidden were Ma'aseh Nefesh to be Mekayim. I was in an Uber some time ago to be someplace, and it was a Russian Jew that was driving the Uber, and he was telling me about the time that he was in the army in Russia, and he was an older fellow. He's older than me, and he was talking about when he was in Russia, and that there was some point with his papers that he said that he had the ability to hide the fact that he was a Jew, not to write on he was a soldier and he had a way out of identifying as a Jew, and he told me that he was there with some Russian official who knew that he was Jewish, and the official told him this is in I forgot which city in Russia he told me he was from, but this was back there, and this guy, like with the army, told him that, look, I know you're Jewish, but I won't tell anybody. I'll work out the papers for you. So the driver was telling me that and this guy was totally not far from anything with Yiddish guy. The guy that's telling this to me. Now he says he keeps some things, but he was then nothing. And he said that he told the official, and he said it out loud. The other people, the guy was whispering to him, and he said out loud, how do you say it in Russian? Ivrit, to put there who I am. And then he started to unbuckle his pants and said, if you want to see, I'll show you myself. He said, I'm a Jew. And he said out loud. And he said there were a lot of the Chaver that didn't know that he was Jewish, people. And so the thing is that, so I asked him, so he's driving, he was telling me this story. I'm very moved by this story. And he wanted to talk to me about this. I guess he could tell that I'm Jewish. And he wanted to talk about this. And I said to him, it happens his name is Vladimir. That just happens to be his name. Was Vladimir. So his Hebrew name is Aryeh. So I said to him, so Aryeh, so why did you do that? Why did you do that? So he says to me first, he says, well, this guy's going to tell me that I'm not a Jew. It's like, so that's the that part of him. The chutzpah that has his fun. I said, you think that's the whole thing, that you want to teach the guy a lesson? That's what you want to teach the guy a lesson. So then he was quiet and he said, look, Rabbi, I'm not religious. I wasn't anything then. Now I keep some things. He said he doesn't eat chametz on Pesach. He told me he doesn't eat chametz on Pesach, and he lights Hanukkah candles. He said, I'm not religious. I wasn't anything then. I'm a little bit more now. He says, but I'm a Jew, and I'm part of the Jewish people, and that's my connection. At that time in my life, when I said, "You want to see that I'm Jewish?" He said that's something that I don't know what it means exactly, but I can't separate myself from the Jewish people. And if something happens to me because I'm Jewish, then I'll be proud that it happens to me. And I want to be part of the Jewish people. I don't want to go with the Goyim. I'm going to go with the Jews. That's what he said to me. This guy. Some of the best drushes you hear from taxi drivers and these people is that this Yid, Vladimir. It's a very ridiculous thing. A person that was engraved in us, such a thing. That's my connection. That's my bris with Am Yisrael. And this person, he felt that. He understood that. So again, let's start Shmis HaBris. To come into this agreement. So we learned there's the mitzvah of Bris Milah, but then there's Shmis HaBris. bris milah happens to us when we don't have bechira, unless you make that choice when you're older, like many of the Russian Jews had to do, and other Jews that they were not given a bris when they were babies, so then they had to have later on either an actual bris or a toughest bris, but then there's shmiras bris. The commitment to this agreement or bris is not just something that took place a long time ago when we were born. To maintain this bris with Hashem. So now this is already much trickier than just having a bris. It's the maintenance of the bris, shmiras bris, which again we learned from Rav Mata. We spoke a lot about that at Barichas. I'll talk more about it. To maintain this bris with Hashem, we are commanded to continue to watch over it all the time, this bris, especially when the potential for having children begins to develop, now, at the age of adulthood. When there's that first awareness that there's something different about me. None of us were active participants in the mitzvah of bris milah, performed on the 8th day of life. However, the concept of shmiras bris, which will be explained shortly, is a manner of voluntarily choosing to maintain this bris that was given to us at birth. And that is the greatest bechira of the bar mitzvah bacher, of the yeshiva bacher, to be boicher, to be a shomer habris. That's the bechira of shmiras habris. So this unbelievable gvura begins to be asked of the young man as he's growing up, as he's maturing, that which was stamped on him as a child, which was just krisas habris, now it requires shmiras habris. And this is the avodah now. The ikra avodah of shmiras habris is throughout your life. You'll be married, of course, as well. And keeping all the halachas and being careful with kedusha throughout your entire life. But right now, as you become bar mitzvah, leading up to the bar mitzvah and after bar mitzvah, this is the training ground to prepare you as a bal bechira, to be a person of gevura, to be a shomer habris. Shmiras habris is the preserving of the capability to have children until the time that we can actually do so, after we get married. Every zera, every sperm in our body contains the potential for creating life, which makes each one very precious. In order to avoid harming this capability by using it before the right time, one should not touch the Avraham bris for no reason, because this can cause zera to be released. That process is called zera levatala, wasting zera. This, of course, is before any discussion of halacha and going through the halachas. The kid probably already heard that this is a horrible, worst aveira in the Torah. So we're trying to again frame this in a healthy way in the context of Avodas Hashem. That process is called zera levatala. So you don't begin talking about intentional shich v'zera levatala, about what's called in the English word masturbation. You don't begin with that, talking about that, but about being careful, shmiras habris. That process is called zera levatala, causing, through touching the bris, causing zera to come out, levatala, wasting zera. And the halacha tells us that we should refrain from doing so. Not that you're going to burn in Gehenna, not that you're never forgiven, not that there's no tshuva, just that we should try to refrain from doing that. Even if one does avoid touching, sometimes the reproductive organ, sometimes the bris may still begin to harden, cold erection, and one may feel a little bit of pressure or tension in the body. This means that the body is preparing to discharge zera, a result we would like to avoid. It is important to realize that this is just a temporary sensation that passes with time. It's sort of like a wave in the ocean. The wave comes, and in order to avoid drowning, you just put your head down until it passes over you. So, of course, this is a lot more difficult, but that's the avodah. The avodah is hesach hadas, and being able to continue on. Here too, a little patience and mental strength is necessary, which is again something that the child is not used to. Mental strength and patience. These are the two things that are what maturing is all about. This is what it means to mature: patience and mental strength. In other words, what you want, you don't have to do. You don't have to do right now. What you want. I told you years ago that Reb Shlomo Kalina, when he was a little boy, he was running in the street and he was holding a piece of bread. They were very, very, very poor, and he was holding a piece of bread and he was crying. And someone stopped him and said, "Shlomo, what's the matter? Why are you crying?" He said, "I'm crying because I'm hungry." He says, "You're holding a piece of bread. Why don't you eat it?" He said, I heard from my father, he was talking to the Chassidim, and I heard my father say that if you want something very badly, it's not good for you. So I want this so badly, so I don't know what to do. That's what it means growing up. To be able to say, I have to wait. I can't have this right now. Of course, his father never meant that with the kid starving to have a piece of bread. But but that physical desire and being able to say to wait is what it means to mature. Patience and mental strength. It's that my mind could tell me that this is not the right thing, even though my body is telling me, do this, enjoy this. But my mind can tell me, no, don't do this. Wait, this is not, for now, don't do this. Here too, a little patience and mental strength is necessary, and it will pass by itself. Whenever this wave comes, the best thing to do is to distract yourself by doing something else, like reading a good book, going out for a walk, concentrating on your studies, talking to a friend, or any other activity that helps the wave to pass over easily. Of course, if something hurts or doesn't feel right and doesn't go away after a period of time in that part of the body, if there's something wrong, talk to a parent, a doctor about it, see everything is okay. Certain kinds of thoughts, see gradually moving into that place, from mikra, from keri, from something happening in the middle of his sleep, which is completely unintentional, towards something which is now intentional. But first, with the unintentional, certain kinds of thoughts, perhaps due to something you have seen. Not that you want to think about these things, but there are certain thoughts that keep on coming back to you about something that you have seen, may cause your limb to become erect, the aver to become erect. This is also natural. So don't get frightened. Just distract yourself and don't touch, as we mentioned earlier. If for some reason Zera does come out, it is very important not to get upset and take it too hard. Although perhaps you regret that this happened, the concept of tshuva is a great gift that Hashem has given us so that we can improve ourselves and move forward even if we have made mistakes. Hashem gave us this gift because He knows us best and knows what types of difficult challenges our bodies give us. Hashem loves us, and He certainly wants you to be happy, full of hope and love, and maintain your belief in your amazing potential. As mentioned earlier, another instance where Zera may be released is the natural phenomenon called a nocturnal emission, a mikra laila, in one's sleep, which takes place while sleeping without doing anything. If this happens, don't feel disappointed or upset, as this tool is natural. Now, of course, as he'll grow up, we'll see in this form that if there's a mikra laila, you should be very upset about it. But that's already a madrega for later on. And even nowadays, even later on, that's not something which is an ikon avodah to think about. But for a boy, we don't talk about that. For a boy, we don't talk about that. That he should feel bad of having a mikra laila. That's garnished, nothing. While he's sleeping, nothing. He'll find out about it later on. He says, how come he didn't tell me when I was 12? He didn't tell me that he's talking something. That if I would be pure, and my thoughts would be pure, then I wouldn't have had, and the Gemara and Chazal tell us that's what you think about during the day. That's why he had that dream at night. That's not a conversation for a kid at all. The kid needs to know that, because a lot of kids get very scared by that. What happens when they have a dream and something happens? They get embarrassed. They don't know what to do. What to do with the sheet? What to do with it's a terrible, terrible parasha. So they have to know that b'chlal, nothing at all. It's purely a physiological thing. Mr. Swarm talk about nowadays b'chlal. You see with this Indian, it's true. It has to do with Talmud, it has to do with what you ate, and it has to do with the biology and the body developing. It's not because you're bad or chalila, there's something wrong with you. You have a dirty mind or something you were thinking about and you were dreaming about. He might remember that he had a dream, and then it happened when he had a dream, and something came out when he had a dream. And that's part of the conversation. That's okay. But he should know that there's nothing to feel bad about. You're not in control of that. But you had a dream. You're not in control of it. You saw something during the day. You didn't want to dream about it. You had a dream. So that happened. There's nothing. B'chlal. Shum davar. Not to think about it all. Nothing to be ashamed about. Nothing to be embarrassed about. Throw it into the hamper. Yalla. There's nothing. Shum davar. Yeah, okay. Said, all right, so we'll continue. We'll try to finish the Chaveris next week.